Have you ever hired an outside firm to help you only to be underwhelmed? Well, join me as I talk with Joe Mohay from Ignite Visibility, an award-winning digital marketing agency, as we discuss how to maximize your local marketing presence.
Welcome to Fortify Live with your host, Ford Saeks.
Welcome to Fortify Live. We're live right now on Facebook and LinkedIn and a few other places, and I'm thrilled to have Joe Mohay, a longtime friend and the go-to digital marketing expert that I rely on for insights on SEO, especially helping franchise brands. Now, Joe's spent decades helping franchisees across multiple industries get found on Google, so whether you're a franchisor or a franchisee, his insights on what to do and also what not to do will help you boost your online presence. So, Joe, without further delay, welcome to Fortify Live.
Thank you, Ford. Great to be with you, my friend. Seeing you again. I know we run into each other a couple times a year. Funny enough, when I was getting ready for this interview, Ford, I was thinking back probably about 2016 when we actually ran into each other for the first time in meeting. And I was so appreciative of how supportive you are with digital partners like an Ignite Visibility. You were, educating the Z's along with us, just like putting yourself in the shoes of a franchisee, telling them all the great things they need to be doing to manage their online reputation and just the support level. And then that was like back in 2016. And then I run into you again earlier this year in Orlando at another franchise show, and just the same vibe, right? So I just appreciate you so much and inviting me today.
Well, I thank you. So we've got listeners right now that are general entrepreneurs. So even if you're not a franchise brand, stay tuned today because the insights are still going to be very relevant. But I want you to share with our listeners who might not know who you are or who Ignite Visibility is. What was your journey into franchising? How did you find this passion and what you do now?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I've been working with bringing buyers and sellers together for almost 25 years. I got my start in Yellow Pages, funny enough. This was around the early 2000s when Google was really making itself present within the small to medium-sized business sector, and I gravitated to it so naturally. I said, man, what a great way to help businesses grow is dominate a Google search result, helping them kind of open their virtual doorway. And I was just a sales guy, but I was selling a lot of digital products. And so my bosses at the time said, hey, why don't you teach some of your colleagues to do what you're doing? And so they made me a trainer, and I would go out in the field carrying the bag and transition a lot of those print customers into digital marketing. That was in the early 2000s. I've worked in other media companies and kind of grew that background, that career path. And back in 2012, I co-founded IDS, which Integrated Digital Strategies, a digital marketing agency with my partner Steve Galligan at the time, and we co-founded this on the methodology of helping franchisors scale their marketing for the franchisee community. We did that very successfully for almost 12 years. And we were recently acquired by Ignite Visibility back in December because we were able to really build a very sound digital marketing agency that was focused solely on franchise business. And so, we worked with a lot of brands in that tenure before getting acquired, working with brands to help them achieve franchise development, sales, and marketing goals. So helping them attract the right types of candidates, drive really great candidates to their websites and get conversations and deals done with their franchise development teams. And we did that successfully for a number of years. Even to this day, we really do lead with a lot of that marketing focus is helping franchisors sell franchises. But probably about 4 or 5 years into it, when I was with IDS with Steve, we started to really make ourselves known in that franchise space, and we started to build a more scalable service to help franchisees and franchisors accomplish their marketing goals. And we were able to scale by using, domestic and international team members. We learned a lot about, how to service franchisees, being very, very good about being a solution-oriented type of approach. We trained a lot of our account managers to know enough about franchising to be educational and consultative with these franchise owners, all the while offering, digital marketing services to drive business. So, fast forward to 2024, we're up, when we got acquired, we're about 100 employees. We're up to 250 employees across the world. We work with about 80 or 85 franchise brands and well over 2,000 franchisees. And we are really have a very strong growth trajectory because the multi-location franchise model is extremely opportunistic. And we've got a lot of stature in that industry. So we feel like we have a great opportunity to help our clients achieve their goals and objectives.
Well, that's well said. And I know as a fellow, I mean, I run an agency called Prime Concept Group, and we focus on we're more a boutique. We don't do the multi-unit type SEO type services like what you do. But for the purposes of those listeners today, what we're really talking about is how do you get found and how do you attract your ideal customer? So a franchisor is trying to attract prospects who want to become franchisees. A franchisee is trying to attract their ideal customer for their products and services. So this whole term of SEO or search engine optimization, I'm curious. And again, for those of you listening, these questions are not prepared. He has no idea what I'm going to be talking about today. So, he asked me in the green room, he said, what are we going to do before we go live? He said, I want to prepare. I said, look, you've been doing this long enough. We're just going to have a conversation. An authentic conversation is what our listeners are really looking for. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are about the future of SEO, because my instinct now, sometimes when I speak in a keynote or a presentation, if it's a fact or something I know from experience, I speak from that. If it's not, I'm very aware to say, look, this is what I think, not necessarily what's true. But here's what I think. I'm thinking that SEO is gone. I think that the days of trying to create content just to be ranked on SEO. Now, we're not talking about pay-per-click now, everybody. We're talking about organic. We'll talk about pay-per-click too in a minute. But as far as organic SEO, I'm starting to see the search engines, and just what I see on the horizon with AI and what I'm doing with AI is they're going to be pushing organic search listings down, and they're just trying to be a solutions provider and show the answer without it's kind of like they started with rich snippets where Google would show an answer to something, but now it's almost dominating the whole page. So I'm just curious, maybe you know something I don't, but I'm thinking that in 6 months or maybe a year, the same service is going to adapt, but I think it's going to change significantly. But I'm curious to know what you think.
Yeah. It's funny you said that. I've been paying a lot of attention to the generative AI experience as you are. And even on our own agency websites, I'm looking to see how are we ranking for like the money terms, right? Franchise marketing, best practices, franchise development marketing. And what I love is that all of the generative AI is doing is spitting out the most authoritative content they find online and make it very easy for the user to find and kind of get educated on. So what that tells me as a marketer is I got to continuously build helpful content and content that
I
is
agree with.
worthy of being in a generative AI experience. And so to me, definitely, we are using AI in certain aspects of prepping up, topics and doing like little light type of prep work. But the human experience needs great, helpful content. And that's what we're finding a lot of our clients, whether it's franchise development, like you said, franchisors selling franchises, or local franchisees attracting customers. They need to be very informative, educational, helpful in that content experience to be able to rank, whether it's AI, generative AI, or the local maps or the local rankings organically. So my recommendation in kind of out of the gate is thinking of like the system of a franchise development type of campaign. We have about 100 brands that we oversee their franchise development, right? Whether it's the website or digital marketing, we're in the business to help them attract, like you were saying earlier, naturally attract the right types of buyers. And truthfully, you've got to have great content because those buyers have a lot of options. I think you would agree to that, right? They're making life-changing decisions here, and they're being very thoughtful. They're not going to just do an AI ChatGPT search, and that's what's going to trigger them to go in and find the best franchise opportunity. They're going to spend hours researching online and digesting content. So where we've really excelled at over the 12, 13 years as an agency is building helpful, thoughtful content on very robust franchise sales websites. And what that does for it is, you can appreciate, it will index really well on Google search.
Yep.
It'll be thoughtful in a sense that you're anticipating a lot of what the questions your franchise buyers, if you're a franchise development executive, what your franchise buyers may ask in the sales process, either pre-sales process when they're doing their due diligence, or during the sales process, or as things come to the final stage of a deal. You've got to anticipate what questions you're going to get from a franchise buyer and make sure your website arms them with the right answers. We have a methodology called They Ask You Answer. It's a great book. be as transparent as you can. I mean, frankly, they're going to get this information one way or another. Might as well come from you. Obviously, proprietary things you don't want published, but if you can be vulnerable in a sense to give transparent and thoughtful content and answers to the best questions that you think they're going to come up with, you're going to gravitate to the right buyers, and Google's going to reward you for it. So that's been my experience doing this for almost 13 years in the franchise development sector. When, HubSpot got well known in inbound marketing back in the mid 2000s, 2015, we were at the starting gate with that. And that was partly why I think we grew so much in those early years, is because a lot of the franchise development brands that we were talking to were very reliant on lead portals and brokers and maybe some pay-per-click advertising or some, social media thing. But when we explained to them, well, if you were looking to buy a franchise, or you think about life decisions when you're looking to buy a home or buy a car, you're doing all this online research. Why would you not make sure your website is the ultimate hub of information? And a lot of these franchise development sales execs realize, well, I want a competitive edge. I want to sell more franchises year after year after year. So I need to build that foundation within my website so that I can get the right people and close deals and grow that business.
Yeah. So I know that when I work with a brand, I want to make sure that they understand that, especially because a lot of them now, we're like, well, hey, I can just use ChatGPT to write content. And the caution to all of you watching this right now is, one, if you're watching this or listening to this on the Business Growth Show podcast, go to profitrichresults.com/AI-training. It's nothing to buy. It's a free 60-minute video. I do it every month on the best practices of using AI, because what I see brands doing is that they're using ChatGPT to write content now that they think is SEO optimized, but it's not even congruent for their business. So here's the only tip I'm going to say on AI is treat AI as an expert, but monitor it like an intern. It will hallucinate and it'll make things up, and it could cause brand damage. And if as a franchise brand, you need to have acceptable use policies for your franchisees. And as a franchisee, you need to make sure anybody you're working with is doing that. Now, obviously, if you're going to, do this, I recommend checking out Joe at ignitevisibility.com and, talk to them to outsource what you're not strong at so you can focus on taking care of your customers. But when you do create content, and I know this is something you work with your clients too, is think about the different stages of the buying process, from awareness to research to comparison to shopping to buying. And you need to have content on all those. So I always work with clients to say, come up with the top 50 questions about your products and services, your brand, your business, whatever. Make a list. I like to use a website by Neil Patel on answerthepublic.com. None of these are affiliate links, everybody. These are just places you can go check. So answerthepublic.com, you can check it out later. But I like to actually do the research and figure out who are my ideal clients, what their biggest pain points are, what do they have a dominant personality style, so I can cater the content to the right type of prospect, and then create multiple forms of content, because what method do they want to consume? So I don't read. I mean, I got hundreds of books behind me, and I've read over 2,000 books probably. Some scanned, some read the first chapter and put the book down because it wasn't a good book, right? So, okay, hit the laugh button. But what I would say is, how much of that can you recall? So if I asked you, Joe, how many books do you think you've read in your life?
Probably maybe, let's just say 50.
Okay, so let's just say 50. Even if he said 50 or 500, doesn't matter. But how many of those 50, how much content of that 50 books can you recall?
Oh God, I mean, probably a handful at most.
Yeah, 1%, right? 2%.
But I would use today, like thoughts that I would, things that I've learned from that book that carry through today.
So
very, very minimal.
So the concept for those of you listening is, regardless of what you've read or how much schooling you've had or education or job experience, you can only retain so much. And what AI has done is it's read everything and it has 100% recall. So it's important to leverage the power of AI, but you want to make sure you don't lose that human connection, that human touch. And that's what I like about your company, is that you really work closely to tell the brand's story, narrative, and to appeal to the emotional and economic impact of those ideal readers. So now, what else does Ignite do? I mean, you do SEO, but you do pay-per-click, or what other services do you offer?
Yeah, so a core element, like I was explaining, was franchise development, SEO, and content. That bucket that I'm referring to. That also includes paid advertising, right? Very, ultra targeted paid media, whether it's search, display, LinkedIn, all the kind of online channels that your buyer might navigate around. We also, on the franchisee side, and that's kind of where it's a little bit different for us, because being acquired by Ignite when I was with IDS, one thing we loved about the opportunity to be acquired through that is that they are enterprise level, seasoned marketers, top 1% agencies in the Google Premier Partner. They work with multi-million-dollar campaigns. And I said, wow, how exciting that would be to bring that horsepower and specialization to the franchise space and be able to scale for franchisors and national brand type campaigns. So we do a lot of that. And frankly, Ford, when you knew me, a year or two years ago, we didn't have that capability. We did nice paid per click campaigns and we were driving good lead flow. But now the sophistication is a lot better and more scaled. So we do steer a lot of our clients that we're working with on the franchise development to offer them franchisee marketing programs. And we're doing more and more of that now that we're part of the bigger Ignite umbrella. I mean, we're like over 250 employees. I mean, teams all over the world.
And that's
so
249 more than I want right now. I've had hundreds of employees, and my team's going to listen to this, and I'm going to be in all kinds of trouble now. But I'm going to change the conversation. So when I started the episode, I said, have you ever hired an outside firm and been underwhelmed by the results? So I'm just curious. In the green room, we talked about, what makes you different is the relationships and with your outside vendors. So for those of you in the franchise world, typically franchisors focus on their products and services, and then they find preferred vendors. A lot of times they don't have preferred vendors, and then the franchisee is struggling to try to figure out how to hire a vendor that can help them solve their problem, whether they're a multi-unit owner or multi-brand owner. So I want you to talk a little bit about your experience with the do's and don'ts of building a good relationship with an outside vendor and how you can maximize that, and maybe some of the pitfalls to avoid if someone maybe isn't used to that type of relationship. So talk about the relationships with vendors.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would say, there's a term in the industry when I learned how to sell, is earning the trusted advisor status, right? That's the holy grail in any kind of relationship building. And so what I've learned in my years, and the team that I work with, we have a very similar methodology, is be helpful, be solution oriented. This is a digital world. You know this, Ford. Things break. Things don't go as planned. But put yourself in the shoes of the clients. Okay, how can I help solve a problem? Let's do it together. Let's figure things out together. And so that methodology, the way we've done business for many, many years, has proved to be the differentiator from, I think, an agency like us or a partner like us to others. It's like we will roll our sleeves up. Literally, I got my sleeves rolled up for it because that's how we roll. Sleeves. That's how we like to do it. But it takes a lot. You learn. I mean, in the early days, we were flying the plane and building it at the same time, right? When I was, starting to get into this franchise space, we had 15, 20 employees, and taking on a franchise, that's a lot to do, so you had to scale. And so we got really good really quickly on how do we train account managers the right way, train our marketers the right way, scale up, where we had to, tap into some international teams to help us provide that foundational support for franchisees, which is, I would say, a very, very critical element when you are electing for a partner, especially as a franchise. You have to make sure that you have the right partner that has scale, that they have the right approach. Obviously, the services are very important, the technology they use to automate and things that need to be done to provide a storyline look and feel for the brand. But you got to make sure like the people are dealing with the franchisees know how to deal with franchisees, right? They've got to learn the franchise business. They got to learn how to relate well with a franchisee that has just bought a franchise and put their life earnings and life savings in to build a business for themselves, not by themselves, of course, but doing that the right way. You've got to put yourselves in their shoes. So our team is, but I'm very proud of it. We have some amazing account managers that really understand what a franchisee's day of the life is like, and they just go that extra step. Very high touch. These franchisees typically don't invest a lot on a one-to-one level, but in aggregate, it becomes a pretty sizable investment for the brand. So we take those relationships seriously, just like if it's a multi-unit with, 20 locations, obviously he's got bigger goals and objectives and marketing needs. He's going to have a little bit more high touch, but the single unit owner is just as important to us. And we're providing the same level of expertise. Like there's no junior person working with a single unit over someone that has multi-unit. Everyone is really trained to support the franchisees every way possible. And what that does, get back to the trusted advisor status, because I go to these national conferences, it's like you, Ford, it was just a week and a half ago. The gratification I see when the franchisees see some of our team and like just the beautiful, like it's just so authentic. They're hugging and thanking them for the extra support, helping them achieve their goals. It's what I love about this business. But you've got to make sure partners that you select have that same mentality and have the goal of being a trusted advisor at some point in their journey.
So do you have any, so as we're going to wrap up soon, but do you have any do's and don'ts or tips, takeaways? Now, if think about our listeners, we're all business owners, or we work for a business and we're responsible for some type of revenue generating activity. What are some tips that you would say, not necessarily, okay, you could hire you, they can hire me, but where should they start? Should they benchmark? I mean, I've got some ideas, but I'm curious, what would you tell an entrepreneur, a franchisor, or a franchisee where they should start to expand their digital footprint in their business? I'm just curious what you think.
Perfect. Yeah, so it all starts with the ZOR, right? The franchisor has a lot of authority in a sense, even in Google's eyes, right? The brand name, the domain has a lot of authority. So what I always encourage franchisees when they're buying a marketing service through us or through other partners, ride the coattails of the franchisor's website. Make sure that there's, just like we talked at the beginning.
And I would say leverage the power of the franchise, just because I want to be politically correct as I get speak from it. I get ride the coattails of the franchisor. I got it.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's right. Right. That. Yeah. But the point is, make sure that the franchisor has a very foundational set of services through the website, through preferred partners that have proven capability to serve franchisees. That's job number one. Check that box. Secondly, make sure that you have a system in the website that you can personalize your website. Right? It shouldn't be cookie cutter. It shouldn't be a single page. It should have some sub pages. It should have a good FAQ. It should have some video. It should have some really helpful content that's hyper local targeted for your area. So location pages have tremendous upside in rankings if you could do some of that personalization, because being as a franchise in a franchise system, the brand domain is so strong that when you have some local content and hooked into that national brand name domain, it will ride the search ranking quite high. It's just the way franchise systems and the way Google works. So to kind of give some dues, it's making sure you have as personalized website as possible within the parameters of the brand. And many brands have adapted over the years to do that because they know how important their virtual doorway for the franchisee is. Make sure they own the GBP. The Google Business Profile is the most important asset, I think even more important than the website, because GBPs are somewhat treated like a website. You got products, services, scheduling appointments, videos, pictures. You want to make sure it's robust with posts and offers and really show that engagement to Google. So that GBP needs to be
and just for the listeners again, because I know both Joe and I talk fast, you guys can slow this down. When you guys, if you're listening to the podcast, you can do it at half speed, because both of us have had a lot of caffeine today. So the Google Business Profile, obviously, just go to business.google.com, search for your business, make sure you've claimed it and enhanced it. And so, but obviously for a franchisor, the franchisor's owning the local one, or is the local franchisee owning it?
Great question. It's really depends on
the brand, right?
Yeah.
But either way, they need to make sure that you claim it, enhance it, and then leverage it so that you're building Google reviews and you're building local branded authority.
That's right. And engaging those reviews, those attributes, when you're responding back to reviews, or when the reviews are being written and they've got some attributes of keywords that you're trying to help show up more prominently. There's an important element there. But the GBP profile, very important. Okay. The location pages is what I would refer if there's a way to get a blog.
Right. And
URL
what we're saying here, I'm just going to clarify, translate. So when you have a franchise brand, and I'm in Wichita, Kansas, and let's say I was XYZ franchise is going to have the national page, but then I'm going to have the local Wichita page. And then on that local Wichita page, or what Joe's saying, pages, I want to be able to have content that's targeted and relevant and topical to the local community, so that the search engines see that it's authentic.
That's right. And that's where that one-to-one relationship with an account manager that's in a partner program like this can work with the franchisee to make sure it's very relevant and up to date, because you don't want it to be dormant. You don't want it to be cookie cutter where everything sounds the same across every location. Google eats that up. Literally, you do that and you have the domain authority of a franchise domain, like you said, big brand name. Google is just going to propel you to the top of those searches if you do it the right way. The other big thing is making sure, you've got your name, NAP information, name, address, phone number, consistently across the local search ecosystem, right? Your directories, your Apple Maps, your review sites, all very things that have been going on for many, many years. So there's no different aspect there. The other thing we recommend is get involved in events, get involved in your community, nonprofit, things where you can kind of show that you're that local voice, that local share of voice. And there's some link building opportunities there that people will point back to you and saying, hey, thanks for your contribution at this event, and appreciate you, showing this or that. The other thing I love to see is whenever you can localize images, right? Maybe before and after jobs, happy customers, with some of your staff. There's great ways you can optimize those images on the location page, and that gives those signals to Google. This is very relevant, very localized. And the beauty of what we're talking about here, outside of getting present, is this is all earned traffic, earned leads, free business leads coming your way if you just do these tactical things, and then keeping ahead of the game, using some of the AI tools to automate certain things. Like there's a tool you can use where you can look at your competitors' rankings through this AI tool, and it'll tell you what they're doing. That is why they're ranking above you.
I use SEM Rush. What do you use?
So this one, actually, my team sent this information to me the other day. It's called Rival.io.
I'll have to check that out. So Rival.io. So before we go any further, I want to add some context to a couple things. Number one, on the Google Business Profile, when you respond to reviews, don't just say thank you. Okay, and I've done this, and when I do a keynote, I'll do a keynote on local marketing mastery or whatever, and I talk to how many people respond to Google reviews, and I go and I look. They have a 5-star review. It says, "Thank you, your feedback's important." They have a 1-star review. "Thank you, your feedback's important." Yeah. I'm like, no, you have to customize, and they're like, I don't have time. So I show them the actual prompt to put into ChatGPT that's brand compliant, that'll help them respond to the Google reviews with keywords. Okay, that's number one. Number two, if you go to YouTube and you search for Fortify NAP or name profile or local marketing tips by Ford Saeks, I have a whole video on where to use your local NAP, which is name, address, and phone, where it should be on all your profiles. Joe mentioned it. I want to make sure I threw that in. So if you want to learn how to do that, or just go to Google and say, how do I make NAP everywhere? And then the next thing was, where do you get found? So if you think about your influencer and digital footprint, you got to see what shows up when someone Googles your name. So as an action step, everybody needs to Google your company, your name, your location to see what shows up. I don't care what kind of business you are, whether you're inside franchising or not. Yep. What shows up? Mystery shop yourself. What shows up when someone Googles your name? What shows up on your corporate site, the individual franchisee page? What shows up on any association that you're a member of as a local association, if you're a member of a chamber or a business group or another association? What does your profile look like there? And then you've got your social media. What shows up? Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. It doesn't matter what the profile is. All social media websites are just databases, and you don't have to be active on all of them. You want to fish where the fish are. So for me as a keynote speaker, I'm on LinkedIn and YouTube more. I'm on TikTok more now too, because I find that my buyers are actually watching it from an authority standpoint, depending on what their algorithm is set to, which is a whole nother conversation. But the important thing is, where do you show up? And so what we've been talking about today is that overall, if you want, you should hire your weaknesses, hire an agency like mine or Joe's, obviously in the franchising, check out ignitevisibility.com. And you really want to partner with someone who gets it. But even to be a good partner, you have to give them content that's timely, topical, and relevant. So before and after photos, case studies, stories, you have to create the content that then they can use to push out. And the same thing with pay-per-click. That's a whole different episode. But with pay-per-click, you've got to target the ad to the landing page. I see this, Joe, all the time. People do pay-per-click and they do 10 different campaigns, and all the traffic is
Go to
sent to their homepage. I'm like, what are you?
Yeah.
What
and
are you
the
doing?
conversion rates are nowhere. They're like, why am I getting leads?
You can't do it. So, I mean, there's a lot we've talked about today, but I'd really say is that there's huge opportunities on the horizon as you go forward, and there's plenty of opportunity and plenty of business. But as all boats rise with the tide, with AI getting more involved, telling the natural stories, sharing that content, and being authentic is what's going to build trust and credibility, because the future, it's going to be harder and harder to know what's real and what's fake. Now, this has been real. We're both here today. This isn't avatars. Right. We're here. So what are some closing thoughts you'd have for our listeners before we wrap up? And then when we do wrap up, stick around for the end after I do the closing.
Yeah, I think the one thing I think we just want to make sure we're touching on is, I like how you say the rising tide lifts all boats. That's actually one of my favorite phrases, is make sure you have a scorecard where everyone is winning and where there's opportunity. So a KPI report where you've got, as a franchisor, you got all your franchisees under one kind of scorecard. Okay, how many are ranked in the top 3 of Google for their primary keyword on the maps? How many are winning in the first 10 positions organically? How many are achieving an acceptable cost per lead if they're running paid ads? The two things we like to kind of add to that, because we do these really nice scorecards for our clients, is how often are franchise account managers touching base with the Z? We want to be at 95% of the week that we're at least sending out a note, a call, or an email, or invite for a meeting to talk about the business, right? And then another one we do is a help desk support ticket KPI, because there's only so many things you could do, during the work hours. Right. But we provide a help desk support, and like if there's an emergency, business critical situation of something can happen, because again, it's a digital world, that they're there at the ready to service that franchisee. So those like levers, I think, in my 13 years working with franchises, those are the levers that matter most, because this is the key here. The franchisors want to provide the great partnership, but they don't want to get involved in the little individual situations. Right, nor should of franchisees. They shouldn't. That they're there to lift the brand and grow the brand. So they want to have reliable partners like an Ignite that know how to navigate around the franchisees and provide transparency to the ZOR to say, here's what's bubbling up, here's what the trend is showing, and having dialogue with them. It's kind of like that intermediary, right? But everyone's going for the same goal, right? And that, I would say, would be the key takeaway, is make sure if you are looking to partner with folks that are looking to grow with your franchise system, that they have the chops to do it, they have the scalability, and they really gravitate to helping those franchisees, because that's their livelihood, and that's what makes the franchise business so exciting.
Well, as we wrap up here, you're going to be at IFA this year, right? The International Franchise Association.
You bet. I might be your neighbor again. I know.
Yeah, I don't know what booth I'm in. I have to check with Devin to find out where our booth is, but wherever we are, I know it'll be a great time. I always love seeing you and your team. So thank you, everybody. This has been Fortify Live. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you for tuning in to Fortify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.